you know, the vice president was not in the arena tonight to watch her running mate, Tim Walz, give his big speech. She was watching from her hotel room here in downtown Chicago.
Weird, right? I don't know. Is that a normal thing? They came out and said Kamala Harris was going to lower your taxes, like stay out of our kids' lives, right? All that type of stuff. It's like, that's Republicans. You're the ones who want to come into schools and shove pornography into the kids' faces. Eat it! Because they're sick. We've got VTI tests, early pregnancy tests, UTI tests, and treatment, it looks like. Oh, gross. Are those treatments? UTI test plus treatment. Oh, gosh. For all of their infections over the weekend? CNN loves low testosterone individuals. Very happy that they're being represented now at the DNC. Here's how they explained it.
But they are doing so in trying to put forward male figures, Tim Walz being one of them, Doug Emhoff last night, who can speak to men out there who might not be the sort of testosterone-laden, gun-toting kind of guy who wants to listen to
like
Hulk Hogan and the kind of players that came out at the RNC, or might want to listen to that, but also, in addition, understand that it's okay in 2024 to be a man comfortable in his own skin who supports a woman. And that's something that they really are trying to work on with male voters beyond the base.
Abby, we were talking
Chauvinist, misogynistic, bigot men. Okay, so you can see they're just thrilled. They want more Buttigieg's and I guess Doug Emhoff and more Tim Walz's. All right, so that's what they're excited about. Now, one person who spoke that I think embodies this is this guy. He comes out, he's the governor of Colorado, and he says, you know, as a Redditor, a gamer, an entrepreneur, and a Swiftie from the free state of Colorado, I'm excited by Kamala Harris's vision. And I don't have any problem with any of these things, Redditing or gaming or entrepreneurship. Obviously, big fan of that. You know, I don't have anything to do with Taylor Swift at all. I don't know. I honestly couldn't pick a song out of hers. But he is one of these guys I think that Dana is very excited about. Let's listen.
Look, as a Redditor, gamer, entrepreneur, and Swiftie from the free state of Colorado, I'm excited by Kamala Harris's vision for protecting and expanding our personal freedom, internet freedom, and economic freedom.
Okay, so that guy, all right, he's a good embodiment of Democrats, right? And you combine them all together, Redditing, gaming, Swifting, for Taylor Swift, right? That's where I think you kind of have the problem. Like, you know, it's like you can have two, but not three, right? We think about this a lot in different contexts. We'll get rid of entrepreneur because we like entrepreneur. I don't know what his background is. So anyways, he's very excited about it. This is the same guy, by the way, who put this together for the holidays last year, just as a reminder.
Feliz Navidad, Feliz Navidad, Feliz Navidad, prospero año y felicidad.
Okay, so first of all, he should be banned from Spanish forever. No expiration on that ban. And every Hispanic person should vote Republican for the next 50 years after having watched this. That's how horrific that was. All right, now he was speaking last night. Now, then they had the gesticulating Walz come out and do his thing, pointing at everybody, doing the thing. Here he was.
Please welcome the Democratic nominee for Vice President, Governor Tim Walz.
So he came out, you know, he did his spiel, and quite frankly, it was the same speech that we saw before. And when we were going through his IVF stuff on the show, when he was lying about that, he gave the same speech. It was the same dang speech. He was just practicing it over these last couple of weeks. It was the same thing. So there was really no need to watch it if you heard any of the other sound clips. He did the same thing about, you know, waking up, the phone call, don't know if we're going to have a baby or not, or, you know, the whole thing. And that's why we called her Hope. And then we called our son Change. And we call our other kid Tiananmen Square. You know, it's like, okay. What was interesting is that Kamala Harris was not in the house. Where was Kamala Harris? Why did she not attend her vice presidential nominee's big speech? She also didn't attend the Obama's speech. And people were thinking that's because she was snubbing them. And I think that's probably a fair take. She left there, went over to Wisconsin and had a big event over there in Wisconsin, snubbing both Obamas. And then now she's snubbing Walz? Why would she be in her hotel room? Does she have a drinking problem? Was she a little tipsy last night? Was she hungover and couldn't make her way out over here? Here's what's going on.
As you know, the vice president was not in the arena tonight to watch her running mate, Tim Walz, give his big speech. She was watching from her hotel room here in downtown Chicago.
Weird, right? I don't know. Is that a normal thing? Feels like you'd want to be there. Trump was certainly there, and he was there. He was in and out a couple times, but he was largely there watching everybody, right? It's your nomination. You're being nominated to be the leader of the party. So pretty pretty interesting. Now, last night there was a theme. We saw this from Tim Walz. He comes out and he keeps castigating J.D. Vance for his background at Yale, for having gone to Yale, which is a highly credentialed school, allegedly. But there's a lot of contradiction here and hypocrisy. The third night of the DNC felt less like a political assembly and more like a school pep rally. Retired teacher and assistant football coach accepted the vice presidency. He gave a big speech, relatively unknown. Grades are due. He delivered his best efforts. He did not repeat the odd embellishments on his resume, right? Didn't talk about that. He didn't add any new ones. He did, however, leave the delegates in the hall delighted with Harris. And he had a bunch of one-liners. Now, he talked about a video. A former student said, he's the kind of guy you can count on to push you out of a snowbank. Amy Klobuchar came out, summarized the biography, called him a dad in plaid. And then they painted J.D. Vance as someone who's different, right? So this narrative is forming. They're trying to create, it's like a marketing campaign, honestly. They're telling a story. J.D. Vance is this elitist from Yale, and Tim Walz is just this high school coach from Minnesota. Walz received another assist from Oprah, who came out and said that there's inequality in America, despite the fact that she's worth $3.8 billion. Now, the delegates roared at that line from Oprah. Says, I grew up in a small town and blah, blah, blah. But then they said, and none of them went to Yale. Okay, so this was the big line from Walz. I grew up in a small town of Butte, Nebraska, population 400. I had 24 kids in my high school class. And none of them went to Yale. He says, this is a dubious insult here, okay? Is the education that Vance got evidence of elitism from a Republican who was once heralded by liberals on the coast because of his story of escaping poverty? Walz has suggested since that moment that he joined Harris on the ticket that an Ivy League education is somehow weird. Now, here's the problem. Walz did not mention the fact that many of the Democrats who joined him on the convention stage last night went to Ivy League schools. They're little Democrat factories. Many of them even went to Yale. At least a dozen of the Democrats who spoke at the convention on Wednesday went to the country's most elite institutions of higher education, obviously. New Jersey Senator Cory Booker was there, graduated from Yale Law, just like JD did. He wasn't alone. Bill Clinton graduated from the esteemed law school, Yale. Met his wife, Hillary Clinton, at Yale. President of Planned Parenthood went to Yale. Nor was it her first Ivy League. She also went to Princeton, right? They're the most elitist people in the whole world. Klobuchar is another Yalie. Amy Klobuchar went to Yale. After completing her bachelor's degree, she left the Ivy League, went to Chicago. Buttigieg went to Harvard. See what I'm talking about? Whose elite undergraduate education helped him land a plum consulting job at McKinsey & Company. Before Walz spoke, he talked about Vance with darkness. Amanda Gorman, National Youth Poet, also wowed the convention with a new verse. But she graduated from Harvard too. And that Feliz Navidad governor demonstrated his analytical mind when discussing Project 2025. But guess what? He went to Princeton, which I think is like number 3, right? It's like Harvard, Yale, Princeton. Plenty of other featured speakers attended the best schools. Richards, the former abortion advocate, went to Brown. Before earning an Emmy, Tony Award, and others, John Legend went to Pennsylvania. This guy graduated from Dartmouth, or Mindy Kaling from Dartmouth. All Ivy Leagues, right? That's why they're all friends with each other. Even Oprah has an honorary degree from Yale and Princeton. So does Stevie Wonder. Now, Walz says, well, I didn't go to those schools. When asked about all the Ivy at the Democratic convention, a spokesman for the campaign said, yeah, no comment. Yeah, it's true. There was a time, however, when Democrats found an Ivy League education praiseworthy. They imagined me going to the best schools in the land, even though that they weren't rich. Barack Obama said the same thing. Barack Obama went to Harvard, right? Remember that? They're like, oh gosh, Obama went to Harvard. He was the editor-in-chief of Law Review. On to Harvard Law, right? Wow, he's so smart. We know the people who went to Harvard, like Claudine Gay, plagiarized everything. So what the heck about Obama, right? Very, very smart. Anyways, so you can see a good report from Philip Wegman calling out the total hypocrisy, saying that the Ivy League was infesting all of the DNC, as you'd expect, and they turn around and mock it. Now, here was a fun one from Politico. It's an interesting article. In Tim Walz, black women see the right white man for VP. Well, that's good, I guess. See at least a white man, I guess. That's acceptable to them, I guess. I guess that's the new world. Black women organizers see Walz's role as a vital one in a country still roiled by racial conflict, instigated by the race hustlers. Now, when Tim Walz addresses the DNC, as we saw, Brenda Cole says he's the right right white man for the job. Okay, I guess that's acceptable to say. Can you say that in reverse? No, definitely not. Coles, donning a win with black woman pen on the collar of her dress, says that she appreciates that Walz, a Minnesota governor, does not appear intimidated by being a sub to a black woman with the caliber of Kamala. So Walz is a sub. It's like, yeah, good. You be subordinate to the black woman with a high caliber of Kamala. I am such a proud black woman to support our great Kamala Harris. Harris is only seriously considered white men as running mates. Yeah, because they need that for sure. You know, they're trying to like cobble up these different constituencies that they don't have. And it included Shapiro, Mark Kelly. To many Democrats, and especially to black women, the pairing represents a significant step forward in a country still struggling with fraught issues of race. All right, so you can see what's happening now. There was some fact checking. CNN fact checked the fake DNC propaganda, and they came out on this one against Project 2025, explaining the truth of how this operation was formed and where it stands in the GOP.
Listen to this claim from Congresswoman Lisa Blunt Rochester of Delaware about Project 2025 and former President Trump.
He had, with his friends, said the quiet parts out loud, but not only said them out loud, he wrote a book about it. What's it called? Project 2025.
That is false. Trump did not write Project 2025. The project's big policy document published by the Heritage Foundation think tank lists dozens of people as authors, editors, contributors. Donald Trump is not among them.
The truth is really secondary when you're a Democrat. It's whatever is most useful to you. And we've been seeing this. This is very curious. They're almost running like Republicans, right? They're almost running like freedom, mind your business. They came out and said Kamala Harris was going to lower your taxes, like stay out of our kids' lives, right? All that type of stuff. It's like, that's Republicans. You're the ones who want to come into schools and shove pornography into the kids' faces. Eat it! Because they're sick. They're the ones who want to come in and set up hotlines so that you can snitch on your neighbors when they're playing basketball during COVID pandemic emergencies, right? These people who will never leave you alone unless you're on their team. So they're so disconnected. They don't even want, this is the Commerce Secretary, is asked about the jobs report that says that they lied about 800,000 jobs, probably much more than that.
When you hear that, do you potentially think that this new numbers could be a liability for this campaign?
No, when I hear that, first of all, I don't believe it because I've never heard Donald Trump say anything truthful.
It is, though, from the Bureau of Labor.
I'm not familiar with that.
Okay, well, you're the Commerce Secretary. Have you heard of the Bureau of Labor before? Maybe we should start there. Did you go to your orientation class to figure out what all these different agencies are that you're in charge of? Did somebody give you a note about this? It's your own numbers. It's not like Trump just pulled them out of his booty. They're your numbers from other agencies, right? You guys are lying about the numbers and they just don't want to believe it. So it's not good. JD Vance posted this, says, stolen valor. Tim Walz abandoned his troops so that he could run for political office. Says, don't take my word for it. Just listen to the people who served with him.
When his country and his state called out for leadership, Tim Walz abandoned them. In early 2005, his National Guard unit was ordered to deploy to Iraq. He said he'd go, but instead, he retired, leaving his soldiers without their senior non-commissioned officer.
He abandoned us. As soon as the shots were fired in Iraq, he turned and ran the other way. And
Governor Walz had, disappeared and, retired out and left basically his troops high and dry.
The New York Times exposed Walz misrepresented his military record. In May 2020, as Black Lives Matter rioters burned down a police station, Governor Tim Walz again abandoned the people who counted on his leadership. Instead of immediately sending in the National Guard and coordinating with police, he downplayed the situation and let the city burn. Twice, Tim Walz was called to lead. Twice, he ran away. When his
and a great ad. And when the burning was happening, remember, his wife was commiserating with the constituents there in Minnesota. In fact, she wanted to be so connected with their own pain and their suffering that she opened her windows so she could smell the burning businesses in the morning. Love those torched hopes and dreams and lifelong investments. I feel for you people. And then they just sat there and let it happen. So here's another fact check. Trump War Room posted this one, clipped over from Fox, talking about the COVID tip line that they did not mention at the DNC last night. Mind your own damn business. Unless you're out playing basketball without a mask on during the lockdown restrictions, then you're probably going to go to jail.
Elizabeth Pipko, he left out the part about, having his neighbors rat each other out during COVID or shooting his neighbors with paintballs when they came on the porch and putting his his neighbors in jail because they opened their business in COVID, that neighborliness never quite made the speech.
No, it didn't, Trace. You know what else didn't make the speech? Where he said that one person's socialism is another person's neighborliness, right? There's a reason certain things make certain speeches and certain things don't, right? There's a reason someone like me is in the position I am right now, and that's because my parents fled from the very socialism that he likes to make jokes about back in the Soviet Union. There's a reason that we have to dig up everything that Tim Walz has said, because what he says on this convention stage tonight might not be where he actually stands and might not be what the plans are that he and Kamala Harris have for the future of this country, and that's what matters. And I hope everyone is paying attention, not just to the fun that they're having this week, but to every single thing he has said and done over the course of his career, because that is what matters to this country.
Yeah, good points there. So she knows what it's like. They throw around words like socialism like it's meaningless, but people who actually know where this stuff goes, when you have taxes on unrealized gains, you have a lot of big problems that compound quickly that lead to death of hundreds of millions of people, as we've seen historically speaking when these people are in charge. So MSNBC was thrilled about this, so we'll just have a couple reaction bits here. MSNBC's Rachel Maddow said that they were literally dancing after Tim Walz came out.
I had no idea it was going to be like that. The room in here, in terms of our little crowd at MSNBC Mothership, everybody got out of their seats and started stamping and clapping and going, oh my God, I can't believe this. What was that like in the room, Jacob?
I was probably 6 feet away from, half of the football team on this side of the stage. The wattage of the smiles on their faces, it just screamed, I cannot believe I am standing on this stage right now in front of the entire American, not just forget about the people of the United Center, but in front of the United States of America as the state championship football team from this small town in Minnesota. It was like we're all living it with them down here, and it was really an incredible thing to experience.
Wow. All right. So again, they've been touched by a political moment, much like Chris Matthews was some time ago. Here was what Maxine Waters had to say about this. Is anybody going to blame Kamala for everything that's happening around us, like the border, the economy, the wars, inflation, all the stuff? Is that going to come into perspective here at all? She says, no, not at all.
How do you avoid Kamala Harris losing this election because she is held responsible for an uneven economy, because it's this administration's policies that will be blamed? The buck stops here. So you got two issues: the southern border that has gotten worse under their watch, and grocery prices, gas prices, pocketbook economics worse on their watch. Can she overcome that, and if so, how?
Nobody expected vice presidents to run the country. As a matter of fact, most vice presidents have been very low-key, did not have a portfolio that was assigned from them that was significant.
Okay, so she's not responsible for this disaster, I think is the point.
So I don't think they're going to blame Kamala for anything. As a matter of fact, they're going to praise Biden for keeping his promises. He said to many of us, you got my back and I have yours. And he's lived up to that. Did you see the love that he got on the floor last evening? People loved Biden. They thought he was an honorable man. He was a decent human being. He was a fair human being. And they're not blaming anything now on him or her. They're looking forward to the new possibilities of how this country can be the great country that it should and could be.
Okay, so she was off a little bit, but she caught herself on that second half. I was a little bit nervous in the first half, but she caught herself in the second half and says, no, well, first of all, Kamala's not responsible for any of this crap, okay? So Joe Biden, though, he's amazing, and he had a lot of energy, and he's great, and everybody loves him too. So no one's upset about anything there, Chris Cuomo. And Oprah was out. This was a fun clip. She was talking about this. Spencer grabbed this one. He says, I'm screaming at the DNC, cutting to this random woman here. So this poor woman is just sitting there at the DNC. She's like, yeah, I'm at the DNC. I'm having so much fun. I love abortion. Yes, I love genitals, abortions and stuff. And Oprah talks about crazy cat lady, and the guy on the switcher, she's like, and then there's these crazy cat ladies. And it's like, what? Yeah, it's not good. Here's how this went down.
To a childless cat lady?
Oh, man, that stinks. She's like, what? I got 5 kids, 3 dogs, and I'm married. What are you talking about? Anyways, this was also strange. So apparently they had a Hotties for Harris event. I watched this yesterday. I couldn't find any of them in here. Maybe you can find at least one. I haven't found one of them yet, but there's some, music playing here, but we can see what they're getting into as this plays. When they get in here, it says, freedom ends soon, Hotties for Harris, stop sex, vote red. Freedoms end soon, act now. Tim Walz got me laid. Everything must go. Choice ending soon. All right, so we'll continue forward on this. It says Hotties for Harris. So this woman shows up. JD Vance, they called him the most awkward man. Property of JD Vance. See, she's sitting on a couch for some weird meme that they made up amongst themselves. This also looks like this is I don't know if these are like contraceptives or if they're like the abortion pills or whatever, but maybe we'll get to it. So she comes, she throws a punch. What was she punching? What is that? Fight for repro rights. But why is she punching the thing? Yeah, okay, so fake children, I guess, because they won't actually have any. And sexual harassment lane, they want to go and spend time, I guess, remembering sexual harassment. So we got some babies. Those babies were not real. If they were real, they would have been aborted already. Wall of weirdos. They got a bunch of people on here, and they take a photo out here. All right, still looking for some hotties in here. Haven't really found any. Actually looks like a bunch of dudes now, mostly dudes. All right, so we've got VTI tests, early pregnancy tests, UTI tests, and treatment, it looks like. Oh, gross. Are those treatments? UTI test plus treatment. Oh, gosh. For all of their infections over the weekend? Oh, gross. All right, so then there's going to be adult early pregnancy tests. I don't know. Apparently, like, there's no condoms or anything. It's like just get pregnant and just abort it or something, and then treat your venereal disease. All right. Weird, folks. All right, so here's some other problems. Here is what this guy was saying, that we're going to fix this high prices and inflation problem with Kamala, even though she's been here for the last 3.5 years and price gouging is not the actual problem. They're still using this because they believe that low information voters will buy it. They'll just, yeah, the corporations are bad. And yeah, even though they make 1% to 3% margins at the grocery stores and stuff, we're going to blame them still. And it's dishonest, actually. So the CNBC was pushing back on this guy who was trying to sell this propaganda.
Talking about competition and standing up against price gouging is something that reaches out, I believe, to everybody. We saw very tough years after the pandemic with supply chain issues, but she was very clear about that. There's a huge difference between talking about competition and making sure that we address anti-competitive behavior
if you look
and
at
price
grocery
controls,
stores, the price margins are only 1-2%.
And Josh, you know that's not what caused the inflation. So, and for you to say it with a straight face, it doesn't help your cause at all.
No, but Joe, talking about as a capitalist, I believe in competition and making sure that there's actual competition.
Why didn't the corporations gouge for 40 years if that's what caused it? How did it suddenly happen? They learned how to gouge 3.5 years ago, and it went to 40-year highs on inflation. And when you talk about unifying, being where you are, you may be unifying intra-DNC, but I can guarantee you that what we're seeing in policies coming out are not unifying policies. And you must know that in terms of the populist.
But Joe,
they're not unifying to me. They're very divisive.
Well, I think we'd all agree that the other side has been clear about burning down the house and taking a much more extreme perspective. That's all I'm saying.
No, we can't all agree. I don't think we're going to have to agree to disagry, because I don't agree. But I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I'm just making the point that I think standing up to
every sentence starts with "we can all agree." Every statement begins with "we can all agree."
Okay.
No, we can't.
Yeah, very awkward. No, we're not all going to agree with your little communist premise. Okay, no, you guys are blaming something on people who are not responsible for it. You know who's responsible for it? The government is. You guys shouldn't have spent trillions of dollars during COVID. You guys wrecked the economics of the country, and now they're trying to blame people who have no fault in it at all. It's disgusting when they come back and they blame the people, right? It's corporations are brothers and sisters, okay? Our families all work at these places. They're not some amorphous blob of machinery that is such an evil thing, right? These are people. They're competing in diverse marketplace. No thanks to the government. The government shut them down, many of them, and then made their lives much more difficult. And now they're going to turn back down on the farmers and the people who are actually producing the goods and services and blame them for price gouging. Now, his answer, honestly, the answer that he should have given back to that, why did this all start 3.5 years ago? Easily to blame that on COVID. You just say it was COVID. There was an excuse for COVID. Costs were inflated for sure, but then costs have come back down. And now the markets, the companies have not lowered their costs to match the lowered costs. You make up something like that. And then you'd have to respond to that and say it's supposed to be a market. And so if the theory is, if you have open and free markets, if they are price gouging, you just have a new entry into the market. You just have somebody who comes in and undercuts the price, provides a better good or service at a lower price, and then cleans up the market. That's the idea. But they don't want that, right? They don't want free markets. They'd rather go towards more regulations, more price gouging controls, price controls, which leads to shortages and death. But he can't explain it because there's nothing to explain. He knows the truth.